Gene Hackman, a former Hollywood icon who opted to fade from public view, and his wife Betsy Arakawa were discovered dead at their Santa Fe, New Mexico, home. The authorities have determined that there were no indications of foul play, but the mystery surrounding their deaths continues. Gene Hackman was more than just an Oscar-winning actor. He had a troubled past full of hidden struggles, including a stint in prison for theft, ridicule for his lack of acting talent, and an aggressive personality that never shied away from physical conflict. Despite his waning fame, Hackman stayed in Hollywood for something much bigger. Is this the last chapter in Gene Hackman's life, or just another mystery? Let's find out. In 1956, when Gene Hackman decided to follow his acting dream, he was unknowingly putting his most important things on the line, making mistakes that were practically inevitable. While Hackman was still trying to establish himself in the film industry, he would Faye Malls, the woman he had hoped would be his rock. In the beginning of their marriage, Hackman was still a relatively unknown actor who had to take on odd jobs to make ends meet. Despite this, they enjoyed a basic but happy life. Even though everyone else thought he and Faye would never be able to make it, Faye had faith in her husband. They had a house constructed, and Christopher Allen, Elizabeth Jean, and Leslie, and are their 3 children. However, as is so frequently the case in Hollywood, love and prosperity do not always go hand in hand. A new chapter in Hackman's career began in the late beginning in the 60s with Bonnie and Clyde in 1967. He formally became one of the top stars in the business by the 70s. Hollywood A-listers, who have starred in blockbuster films like 1971's The French Connection and 1972's The Poseidon Adventure. The light shone more clearly on Hackman, but the shadow of his work dominated his family life. Faye and the kids became more of strangers as Hackman went from film to picture, city to city. The calls home visits grew more infrequent, and he was less present at family gatherings. During an interview with the New York Times in 1989, meals were an uncommon luxury. When Hackman finally conceded, "You become incredibly self-centered. Acting is a career that lasts a lifetime," seeking approval and finding it difficult to decline the financial and social benefits that come with achievement. "For an innocent child like me, the temptations were just too much." Faye Malty waited patiently, but after 30 years of marriage, they finally divorced in 1986 due to the growing distance between them. With minimal drama or arguing, Hackman's first marriage came to an end. In an interview with GQ, when asked what advice he would provide, the man expressed sadness about what he had lost, but there were no legal battles involved. "As a gift to his kid, I was gone for much too long," Hackman regretfully confessed. "What I don't know is whether this was due to bad decisions or the unavoidable outcome of that he learned the hard way after his divorce that there is incessant pressure to succeed at any cost, even if it means putting family happiness on the back burner." Back in 1986, Faye Maltz Hackman kept acting and landing big jobs. He was still a top Hollywood actor, but he had been apart from his family for a long time. Hackman wasn't social until he met his life would be forever altered by Betsy Arakawa. Hackman, a pianist who had no ties to the Hollywood elite, met Betsy, who was 32 years his junior. In the late gym-goers in the 1980s, there was no drama or haste in the workplace where Betsy worked, so their romance blossomed organically. It was in 1991 when Betsy gave Hackman the piece he had never seen before. This time, Hackman decided he didn't want a family life, so he and Betsy got married. His job took center stage, so he and his wife chose to live a low-key existence away from the limelight and the press until they finally found the calm that fate had promised. Although J.E. Hackman has had to face numerous devastating events, he wishes he could erase the memory of one of the first shocks he ever experienced. Was the terrible 1962 Anna death of his mother. Reportedly, Elizabeth Hackman was killed in a house fire. After a night of heavy drinking, she dozed off with a lighted cigarette in her hand, and Hackman's house was swiftly devoured by flames. Beyond the pain of losing a loved one, there was an intolerable sense of remorse. The only person who had ever thought he could make it as an actor was his mother, but by the time she was no longer present to see Hackman's rise to fame in Hollywood. He was very private about discussing this sorrow, but in an interview he gave in 1982, he said that the film, "I Never Sung for My Father," was the one he would recommend to his mother because it resembled his own life story. The death of Hackman's best friend was another crushing blow. The untimely demise of Norman Gary enjoyed widespread fame as an entertainer. Conjecture of outstanding financial issues following the unexpected passing of the lawyer, who was one of Hackman's most trusted confidants, escaped the sadness with Hackman, who has more questions than answers. In his work, Hackman immersing himself in acting, playing role after role, in order to dull the agony, as he explained in a subsequent interview. He came clean about his intense focus on acting during that time, saying that he didn't want to let himself be overwhelmed by sadness. He has played pivotal parts in his career, such as Under Fire, 1984 Hoods, 1985 Mississippi, and 1986. Hackman didn't merely suffer emotional losses due to the 1988 films that cemented his position among Hollywood's elite. Along with his share of real-life experiences, conflicts involving peril, his involvement in a street battle in Hollywood in 2001 while driving was one of the most memorable episodes of that year. A vehicle was involved in an accident with Hackman's vehicle. Two clearly young males emerged from the shadows infuriated because I failed to deal with the matter. Unbeknownst to them, they were provoking a 71-year-old former Marine as they quietly threw insults at Hackman. Hackman was not the type to back down from a conversation quickly. He landed the initial blow, and the three of them dove headfirst into a street brawl that had the police racing to the scene of the crime, but they were unable to apprehend anyone. This incident further demonstrated that, despite his departure from action-packed roles, while Hackman's battling spirit remained unwavering, 2012 was the year he came dangerously near to death. When riding my bike helmetless on a road near Florida, news of the accident spread rapidly, causing fans to fear for Hackman's safety. Fortunately, he only suffered minor injuries, and was released from the hospital the same day. On the same day, his loved ones revealed that, despite his age, he still continued to cycle, but from that day on, he always wore a helmet. Fast forward to 2004, after finishing the comedy Welcome to Mooseport. No official notification was made when Gene Hackman abruptly left Hollywood. There will be no final news conference, not a farewell movie like previous legends at the time. Many thought he just disappeared from screen after that. People started to wonder why Hackman, who was clearly still a top-tier actor who could dominate any screen, would abruptly disappear. Could it be because his last film, Welcome to Mooseport, bombed at the box office, earning only $14 million out of a $30 million budget? Was he sick of the Hollywood glitz and chaos, or did he just stop finding interesting enough scripts? It turned out that there was a lot more going on. A decline in Hackman's health since 1990 has started to set in. He was taken to the hospital in a hurry because of a serious artery blockage. The doctors there assessed his heart condition and proceeded to execute emergency cardiac procedures. A life-saving angioplasty procedure. If he had made it to the hospital in time, he may not have made it through the procedure if it had been performed even a little time later. Hackman kept performing for almost a decade into the early 2000s, despite having to make changes to his lifestyle. Some of his health problems reappeared. While filming, he began to feel fatigued. Snaps during the arduous workday, under the strain of dramatic situations. In an interview with Empire magazine, the interviewee expressed that the frequent traveling had become too much. Hackman came clean about his exhaustion from acting. He went on to say that his doctors had warned him about the pressures of a film career and other sources of undue stress, and that Hackman preferred not to take on anything less than his absolute best. Reason number 1 wasn't health. Hackman was open about his distaste for Hollywood's pomp and circumstance and his animosity for the industry's management. The hosts of award shows detested being the center of attention and hated acting cordial during interviews. It was never my goal to become a famous actress. After almost 40 years in the industry, he decided he had enough and decided to walk away from it all. No fanfare, no goodbyes, and no more performing on red carpets. As he had previously told him, Hollywood was a relentless machine. Directors persisted in contacting him in the hopes of a comeback despite his refusal to participate in any film-related activities or accept any performing roles that were offered to him. On a rare public appearance in 2008, Hackman was asked if he would ever return to acting. He provided a straightforward answer, declining all of them. Nevertheless, he ironically remarked that he could be open to considering a script, as long as it could be shot in his house, instead of going someplace else. Aside from his impressive filmography, after leaving Hollywood, Gene Hackman didn't waste time at expensive parties or other entertainment events. Instead, he pursued his particular pursuits. As an alternative, he immersed himself in writing, drawing, and other personal pursuits that offered him solace. He authored 5 novels, primarily historical fiction and crime, after discovering a passion for writing, which he followed with the same intensity he had when performing. Suspenseful works such as Justice for None, 2004, and Pursuit. Even after retiring from acting in 2013, he found a way to keep out of the spotlight by writing, which allowed him to keep his creativity alive. In 2016 and 2017, Hackman continued to make contributions in various ways. He found a way to honor his history, even after leaving the military, by lending his voice to 2 documentaries on the U.S. Marine Corps, the unit he had served in. The memorable times in Hollywood. Hackman's life never really faded. Hackman also made time for painting, a pastime he had never shown to the public before. He painted exclusively for his own enjoyment, never with the intention of selling or showing his artwork. It is my personal belief that no one should be able to view my artwork. Even though he is most known for his portrayal of tough guys on screen, Hackman had a successful career as a professional race car driver. He competed in the late 1970s in Sports Car Club of America races, and even won the Long Beach Grand Prix Celebrity Race. His crowning achievement came in 1983, when he took part in the prestigious 24 Hours of Day. Tawna was a Toyota racer for Dan Ginn's legendary racing team. One notable event happened when Hackman competed in a 6-hour endurance race at Sears Point Raceway in California. He was driving an Audi Quattro, which was a very advanced race car at the time. Unfortunately, he had to withdraw from the race because his brakes locked up, and the car flipped over. Luckily, he wasn't hurt, but he later joked that maybe he should have let a stunt double take his place. Unfortunately, chasing speed isn't a sustainable lifestyle choice. As Hackman got older, he saw a decline in his reflexes, which is a major problem in racing because you need rapid reflexes. Ultimately, he opted to retire from racing for health concerns and move his focus to safer pursuits. Following a break from the high-pressure world of racing, I enjoy painting and cycling. Hackman stopped being interested in instead of opting for more practical vehicles, he preferred sports automobiles. A humble yet strong pickup truck, the Toyota Tundra was a common sight on Santa Fe streets, and it seemed to suit his down-to-earth lifestyle, no matter how old he was. Hackman kept on cycling for long periods of time, maintaining his fitness routine throughout his 90s even though he had left. His vivacious spirit was evident in his continued usage of an electric bike for transportation. Despite his career in professional racing, Hackman's passion for cars remained strong. He had a 1983 Toyota Celica GT. This was the vehicle he raced competitively, But when he settled into a more sedate lifestyle, his taste in automobiles evolved. He stopped collecting flashy supercars and started collecting long-lasting, functional models with unique personalities, such as his exquisite taste is reflected in his Porsche Panamera, a high-performance luxury vehicle. The Mercedes-Benz E-Class is an elegant, understated option for individuals who value comfort and refinement. His continued interest in high-performance vehicles was demonstrated by his acquisition of a Ford Mustang Shelby, a representation of unfiltered American muscle. His passion in technology and the rise of electric vehicles was through in his current pick, a Tesla Model S, even if his life had slowed down. The spirit of adventure was always there. Hackman just discovered a different way to embrace it. In addition to his passion for automobiles, even though Hackman no longer appeared on screen, he still made time for the things that brought him joy, such as American football. He had a deep passion for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and was regularly observed visiting the stadium as an honorary guest. Although he was rarely seen in public, Gene Hackman and his wife always seemed to turn heads in Santa Fe, New Mexico, whenever he did. For years, Betsy Arakawa resided in the area, and every now and then, people would see the Hollywood legend, who was never accompanied by bodyguards or a gaggle of paparazzi, filling up at a gas station. I'm just Hackman, living my life as an ordinary person, dressed casually. The third-generation automobile he was driving piqued people's interest even more. No-frills Toyota Tundra supercar, the kind of extravagant car seen on Hollywood stars, or a strong, functional pickup truck with its 5.7-liter V8 engine and TRD 4x4 off-road package, his Tundra could conquer any terrain. It produced 375 horsepower. Additionally, the vehicle had a Privacy truck bed cover, glass Bilstein shock absorbers, and an overall design that prioritizes comfort and stealth. While affluent actors often flaunt Bentleys or Lamborghinis, Hackman's choice says it all. He chose a simple, practical vehicle that served its purpose well. It was a reflection of his personality, unassuming, unadorned, and unconcerned about being noticed. Despite his retirement, Hackman had never sought the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. He never wavered from his authentic self, a legendary figure who embodied humility while exuding indomitable strength. Not only was Gene Hackman an excellent actor, but he was also a complex man who could be both gentle and brutal. Fearless in confronting directors and even throwing physical punches in real life, he has the ability to mysteriously disappear from Hollywood without a trace, a trait he never aspired. Notoriety never sought approval from others. He was a legend in his own right, but he was also a career rebel. He quit on his own terms. It was just his way and character. In spite of growing up in an environment where he was doubted and despised, Gene Hackman exemplified tenacity and an unwavering spirit, ascending to the status of one of Hollywood's all-time greats. Even though many Hollywood stars are still chasing the spotlight, Hackman proved that success isn't dependent on luck, but on believing in oneself and persevering. Hackman did not follow the crowd. Spending quality time in Santa Fe with his wife, unburdened by the demands of the outside world, his legacy extends far beyond his classic roles, such as Poe Doyle or Lex Luthor. It is reflected in his unwavering refusal to conform to the limitations imposed by others. The world is still reeling at the news of his and Betsy's demise. The performances of Gene Hackman will endure. What about you? How will you remember him? His life story, and the man behind the legend, will always hold a special place in his fans' hearts. Whether it's through his iconic roles, unforgettable quotes, or just living life on his own terms, Gene Hackman was a true Hollywood legend. If you admire him, leave a comment with "RIP Gene Hackman" and join us in honoring this man. If you want to know more about Gene Hackman, watch the video on your screen now to find out the whole story. And if you love these untold stories of legendary figures, be sure to subscribe to our channel.